clearly, photographs of office buildings are never very exciting, but we've got Canada on one side and our venue that we have the office space here in The Hague. I'll just point out that this is not just an office of Compusult Limited. We are a wholly owned subsidiary as Compusult Europe BV. So we are a separate company. So I'm going to talk through some feedback of our recent experience of setting up. Actually, quite a bit of the preparation work was done before Caroline or myself actually joined the company. So I've sourced a good deal of the feedback from members of the management team that were involved in the process. We came on a bit later once we stood up the office. Just a bit of background information. The company itself was formed in 1985 with its headquarters in Mount Pearl in Newfoundland. It also has offices in Ottawa and Halifax, and has a US subsidiary in Virginia, USA. The European office in The Hague is shown here, which is now the newest office within the company. So how did we get here? Well, in 2018, the company won a contract with a multinational organization based in The Hague. And obviously, due to the physical distance and the time difference, it was clear that a local presence to help manage the contract would be very useful. It was also necessary to have a base for folks that came over from Canada to work from while they were here for meetings, project reviews, whatever else was required. Now, at the time, the company was also considering expansion into the European market anyway, and opening a Dutch subsidiary was clearly a way of covering all those needs. Hence, we picked The Hague as the customer we were dealing with is actually based here in The Hague. I've broken my subject down today into three broad areas. I'm only going to touch on some of the major aspects, but Carol and myself will try and pick up any questions at the end if we haven't covered anything in great detail. So starting from the top, again, this was starting up a brand new company essentially. In late 2018, our company president met with the trade commissioner from the Canadian embassy here in The Hague to discuss the plan of opening up an office. And out of those discussions, the Trade Commissioner recommended that Compusult make use of a Dutch finance and legal services company to advise and guide the path through the necessary form filling and all the legal requirements. As a result, a company was selected and contracted to provide us essentially with a one-stop shop to do things like the company incorporation and the setup services, legal and tax services, and accounting, financial reporting, and close to my heart, payroll services, as I like to get paid each month. Overall, it was a comprehensive package to get us going and up and running. By summer 2019, it was confirmed that Compusult Europe BV as a company had been incorporated and registered in the Chamber of Commerce. So we're all there ready to go. About the same time, applications were made to 2 Dutch banks to open a bank account. Again, more bureaucracy. The banks confirmed that assistance is required from the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. And after we got some paperwork and a letter of contact from them, all things went ahead and we finally got a bank account open from one of those 2 banks. Overall, the message here is that using a Dutch finance and legal services company significantly simplifies the process because they can walk you through the necessary steps from a position of knowledge. They can also translate correspondence from the Dutch authorities, which, believe me, is no small task for a non-Dutch speaker. The other thing sort of raised to bear in mind for anybody who's going through this is start setting up a bank account early. It takes a good couple of months, and we ended up in a position where the office was open before the bank account. So get on it early. In terms of finding a suitable location, the management team came over from Canada to The Hague in late September, which is actually the time that both Caroline and myself joined the payroll. So interestingly enough, our first task on day, actually it was day -1 in the company because we weren't actually on contract that day, was to go around with the president and find an office. So that's never happened to me before, but it was an interesting experience. Finding the space was actually relatively straightforward as our requirements were quite simple. But at the time we were looking, honestly, there weren't many suitable offices on the market. So if a company has a specific requirement, it may well need more time than half a day that we managed, and may need more than one visit to find the right place. The office we found in the end, or the office space, was a lease from a part of an existing office floor where the current leaseholder had surplus space. Our moving in was delayed by about a month while the lease was finalised and some minor building work was done. One advantage of that approach from our perspective was the office space was already furnished, so there was no immediate need to go out and shop for office desks and furniture and everything else to make it usable. So that cut down time there. It was also great help that the owner allowed us to use the existing Wi-Fi while our internet connection was installed. As this took about 3 months to get coordinated, the Wi-Fi was actually pretty critical in the early days. We were probably quite lucky to find somewhere in the space of one morning, but each business is different, so it's hard to make any firm recommendations from our experience, except to say I recommend anybody allows plenty of time to get connection of services such as internet if they're not already in the office space, because that can be a bit of a crippler in the early days. I'll finish off now with a few observations about actually setting up the office as a working entity. From an internal working viewpoint, we were a new company, so we had to put in place policies and procedures that complied with Dutch employment law. Europe overall is pretty regulated, and the potential fines for getting it wrong are significant. So to make sure I didn't get it wrong, I called on the expertise of the legal services company I mentioned earlier to make sure we were complying with the rules. They were able to provide some templates for many of the policies we needed, and they were also available to review draft documents if required. Of course, at this point, it'll come as no surprise if I say that they charged for these services, so I did try to use them sparingly and only when I really needed to. From the business perspective, on startup, both Caroline and myself were employed to support the existing contract, so that was pretty straightforward. As I mentioned earlier, the company has aspirations to expand business beyond that contract, and before the office was even opened, contact was made with the Regional Economic Development Agency for the province of South Holland. It's an organisation called Innovation Quarter, and they have an office here in The Hague, which was very convenient for us. They were able to offer general advice on how business works in the Netherlands, and they also provided contacts with other companies, the media, university researchers, government departments, chambers of commerce, in fact, a whole raft of different organisations that would be of interest to a new company. Overall, it was a very open, friendly and helpful process. They were genuinely interested in being supportive. Sorry, I haven't got a glass of water to get you lubricated here. Frosterlink has now gone a bit cool with the coronavirus restrictions, but now those are easing and we're refocusing on business development. We're aiming to renew that link over the coming months. So again, the overall high-level piece of advice would be to develop a strong relationship with someone on the ground when you first come into country, someone whose job it is to help companies thrive, and a regional development agency fits that bill pretty well as the first point of contact. That high note is actually the end of my prepared presentation.